Excellent. So good morning. This is Eric Law with EADOC. This is our webinar and Introduction to EADOC's Collaborative Capital Project Management Application. Since we've only got a couple of participants this morning, I'm going to go ahead and leave the lines unmuted. So feel free to ask questions as we go through the presentation here this morning. Or you can hold off at the end and we can do Q&A then as well. So with EADOC's Collaborative Capital Project Management Application, we're going to use the tool itself to take you through our application. We're going to talk about the collaboration capabilities, about connecting your entire team electronically. We'll go through the workflow here in the system. We'll go through the document control, cost control for you guys. And then feel free to ask questions or go ahead and post them to the chat log as we run through the presentation. Now when we take a look at workflow and collaboration, the first thing we want to look at is connecting your entire team electronically. So with the EADOC application, what we're doing is we're enabling you guys as either a PM/CM firm or the facility owner to bring on all the project participants. So the key benefit here to EADOC is I can add my designers, I can bring on my consultants, I can bring on my contractors. If I'm a PM/CM firm, I can bring on my client if I'm managing the project on their behalf. And so I can share and exchange information with these project participants. Now with EADOC, we allow each of these project participants to take it a step further. They can actually add their subs to the system. So this way my designer can go ahead and bring on all their sub-consultants so they can send and receive information from those subs through the EADOC application. This way my designer doesn't have to use two applications. They get the full features and functionality of EADOC. They can control where that submittal goes, for example, for review, which drawings from those subs go back to myself or go back to the client here. Those subs and the designer can run reports, alerts, and notifications. They get all the features and benefits of EADOC, including the workflow capabilities, as if it's their own application. But there's no need for them to do duplicate data entry. You know, traditionally when you bought a piece of software, your participants just got a dumb portal to enter information. With EADOC, they get full features and functionality. Same thing with your contractors down here. I can give my contractor access to turn in RFIs, submittals. They can put that information in the system so I don't have to. And then they can go ahead and add their subs to the system. So this way the subs can create the submittals and RFIs directly in EADOC, so there's no need for anybody to do any redundant data entry. Now with the EADOC application, the contractor gets complete control over their subs. So when that sub turns in a submittal, the contractor here can review it. If it looks complete, they can send it to myself here as the PM/CM, or they can reject it and send it back to their sub. If they reject it and send it back to their sub, that conversation or that submittal remains between those two participants. I'm not going to have access to it until they actually explicit send it to me. This way the EADOC application is controlling the flow of information. The great thing about the construction industry is that there's one standard that everybody follows. We wish there were more standards that people follow, but the one is contractual requirements. You know, typically information has to follow contractual lines. So we've taken that standard and we've automated that for you guys. So we're looking at duplicate data entry, we're enforcing contractual requirements, and we're tracking the audit trail. You know, all that transmittal information that many people are doing manually is all tracked automatically in EADOC. So when you look at a submittal in our system, it's going to track when the subcontractor creates it, when the general received it, when they send it to my team here, when I passed it off to the designers, when they send it to their subs. It's all being logged automatically. This way for me as a PM/CM and for my client, we're not wasting money on these project participants. We're not paying for their administrators to maintain transmittals and maintain document logs. It's all being done by the software application. Now EADOC is a pure web-based application, so all these project participants, all they need is a web browser with an internet connection. They can all have different computers, they can all have different internet connections. As long as they have an internet connection, whether it's an iPad, a laptop, or a PC device connected, they've got access to their project information through EADOC. Now within the application, we're going to do document control for these guys. We're going to do cost control for these guys. We're going to manage all this data that's moving across the team. And so we're going to take that information and then we're going to roll it up into reports and dashboards for you guys. So this is a project level dashboard here in the system. And this is showing me my inbox where I can see items pending on myself like ASIs and daily reports and drawings that have come in for me to review. I can even see some new submittals down here that I need to take a look at. I've got my financial information here, so I'm tracking my project budgets, my contingencies. This is my high-level overview of how my project's performing. And you can see the information can be presented in several different ways. I can take a look at graphical components here like the budget gauge on my dashboard, look at some trend charts, look at a project calendar for my upcoming week, anything that's overdue, and then I can set up some alerts. Now this dashboard is configured. I've set up this dashboard and I've created multiple dashboards for myself. So I can take a look at project level information, program level information, depending on what I want to see here in the system. So I can do a portfolio level dashboard. Every user on your project is going to have access to their dashboards. the key difference being the data that's presented. So for example, these budget values here, typically when I add contractors and designers, they're not going to see my budgets. So on their dashboards, they'll see their own contract values, just their own contract, not my total contracted amount. They'll see their own change orders, their own pay applications, the cost information that they have access to, but not the cost information they don't have access to. So again, it's that full features and functionality. Now, one of the big benefits of being able to capture all this information in one place is the search capability. If I want to find everything related to pipe on my project, I punch in the keyword pipe, and it's going through the RFIs and the punch list items and the submittals looking for that particular keyword pipe in this example. And it's not just going through the forms here in the system, but it's also going through the file attachments. So for example, down here with submittal number 9, I can see that it's got the file PDF, or material.submittal PDF here. So actually somewhere within that PDF file is the word pipe. So we're actually searching the contents of those files for you guys. And if I want to take a look at this particular submittal, I just click on it. It takes me directly to it here in the system. Now with the EADOC application, the way we're capturing this data is we're, one, capturing it at the source. So we're capturing it from subcontractors and consultants. And then we want to ensure that we capture high quality information. As an owner, I want to make sure that my submittals are all completed correctly across the project team or as a project manager. So what I can do here is I can see my submittal form is going to ensure that the numbering meets my requirements. So I've got some different options. How do I want documents numbered? Do I want those documents auto-numbered as they get submitted? Or do I want the contractor to specify the number? Or do I want to pre-populate the list? In this particular project, I've pre-populated the list. So I can see a master list of all the submittals on the project. I can see which ones have been submitted on, which ones remain to be submitted on here. Now the other thing too about these forms is we can capture really high quality information that's got a lot of value to my client as well as to myself as a PM firm. And those simple things are drop-down menus like this type of submittal. I want to be able to run reports that says give me all the shop drawings, give me all my warranties, my O&M manuals, test reports, cut sheets. I want to be able to segregate that information by type of submittals. So I can require my contractor when they're filling out this information, or the subcontractor, to identify that type of information. I can also identify locations. If I'm working on a large project that either it's a large building with multiple floors and lots of rooms, or it's a large civil project over a large area, I want to segregate that information by locations. This way, for example, on my clarifiers, I can see all my documents and communication tied to those. So my submittals, my punch list items. And the benefits of capturing this information for my contractors is they have the greatest level of detail. They know exactly that cut sheet or shop drawing that's going to reply to or relate to. And then my inspectors can use this. My engineers in the field can use this to go in and take a look at all the documents and communication tied to that particular area of the project. Not only do we do it with locations, but we also do it with major materials or assets. As an owner is going to have to operate this facility, they want all the O&M manuals, the warranties, and the test reports turned over to the air handlers, the pumps, the generators, all those new assets that are coming on. So with EADOC, we allow you guys to track that asset information. So I can track all my documents and communication tied back to these particular vertical mixers. So I can see that all managed here in the system. And then from this list, I can drill back down into those particular documents. Not only does this benefit my client, but it also benefits during startup and commissioning. It makes it real easy for my commissioning agent to go through all the major assets that are going to be tested and make sure all the documentation is there for them. For contractual compliance, I can require my contractor to link their submittal to specs and drawings on the project. Not only is this for contractual compliance, but it also helps the designers because they can look up that mechanical drawing and see all the other submittals that have come in against that particular drawing. So again, we're speeding up the time to find information, and we're benefiting the entire team. Contractors, designers, consultants, commissioning agents, everybody's working together to manage the information here on the project. And then finally down here at the bottom of the submittal, we've got the cut sheets and shop drawings here for you guys. Whatever is the requirement is, the contractors can submit anything. These files can be up to half a gig in size, so you can move very large volumes of data through the EADOC application. Now with EADOC, as this information goes through the review process, and I was showing you on that org chart, is that control over the flow of information. So for me as a PMCM, when I'm initially reviewing this information, I can do things like put notes on it. Say for example, I want to put a note to the designer about this mixer. When I first attach this note to the submittal, it's internal within my firm. So again, you've always got control over who can see what in the system. So when I attach this note, this is my own internal note. When I send the submittal off for the reviewers, I can select exactly who I want to send it to. I can include my client, send it to the designers. I can assign responsibility or pass the ball in court, and then I can include my note to go with it. I can also shorten up the due date on my reviewers as well. So I can tell them, hey, I want their comments back by the 22nd. When the information goes to recipients, they'll get an email notification letting them know that this submittal is pending on them. And then every action that I'm doing on this particular submittal is getting logged in the history. So I can see exactly when the contractor created the revision, when they submitted it to my firm here, when we took a look at it, who responded to it, responses, history, off to the designers, notes, change in due dates. Every time I take an action on this document or somebody on the project takes an action, it logs in the history. And this read by entry is a huge benefit. This is a unique entry. A lot of the traditional project management tools didn't track read entries because they didn't connect the whole team. I want to know when I send this to my designers when they look at it. This way I can make sure that they're responding to it quickly. They can't come back to me and say, hey, we never saw that. I'm going to say, yeah, you read it on this date and time. And that's a great tool in terms of keeping the team on their toes, responding to information. With EADOC, nothing's ever going to get lost for you guys. Now once this information is off to the designers, they can go ahead and send it off to their different multiple subconsultants, and they can capture multiple comments. Whoever is responsible for doing the coordination of the submittal comments can capture all those different comments from the reviewers, and then they can merge those comments together. This way I'm going to send one official one back to my contractor. Because I don't want my contractor to see all these initial comments going back and forth. I just want them to see the official set. So I can bring all these comments together, and I can send the one final one off to my contractor, and that's all they'll have access to here in the system. And then also when I do my approval, I'll be able to assign that action code to it. You know, A, B, C, D, whatever codes you guys are using, whatever comments, these will all be configured based on your requirements. So this drop-down will match what you guys are using. So we're tracking all this information electronically. We're giving you guys complete control over the flow. We're doing all the version control here for you guys as well. So I can navigate back and forth between the versions of documents, and you'll see the red flag on the old versions. We're tracking the relationships to that information so we can quickly find it. And we're doing this with everything. We want to track the submittals in the system. We're tracking the RFIs here for you guys in the system. And you'll see I can even have layered fields where I can flag RFIs as a legitimate RFI or as a bogus RFI if my contractor is just trying to flood me on my project. So I've got some very powerful tools as a project manager to try and mitigate cost, mitigate risk on this project, and track all this information electronically. This way the software is doing all the laborious, tedious processing, history tracking, enforcing contractual requirements on the forms, mandatory fields, so I can focus on the project. You know, I can focus on the schedule, I can focus on the approvals, making sure everything gets done on time. The other thing about EADOC too is all the tabs and forms are configured based on the client's requirements. You know, one standard that this industry does not follow is documentation and nomenclature. Everybody's using different acronyms, different terminology, so we can relabel the tabs and the fields here on the forms to match what you and your clients are using on the project. We're going to track all the quality control for you guys on the project. You know, special inspections, soils tests, structural steel, mechanical testing, not just the initial inspection, but we also want to track the responses as well. So when that specialty testing firm completes their inspections, they can post their test results here to the system. We take it through the punch list process. You know, you can track the punch list on your project with the individual items, and this is a great place for tablets. You know, instead of walking the job site with a notepad and a camera, I can have a tablet in my hand so I can take pictures of the issue items, put my notes in, and then send it to the contractor while I'm right there on the project. Or I can choose at the end of my walk to send them the entire list. So we're streamlining that process, capturing the information once, so my architects and inspectors don't have to re-enter it into a spreadsheet at the end of their job walk. We've got the T&M tags here for you in the system. If you got a contractor doing time and materials, have them enter the information. Instead of them filling out a paper tag, have them do it electronically and then send it to you guys for review and approval. You can track project permits with the regulatory agencies here in the system. Start with the application process. I can set up alerts, notifications, due dates, all that same level of control that I have with submittals, but I can do it with things like the permit process. And then with EADOC, I can set up custom tabs and forms, like this work order and this request for shutdown are two custom forms I've set up on this account. And this is great for existing facilities. If my contractor is working on an existing hospital and they need to shut down an air handler, they're going to have to submit a formal review and approval. So this way the facilities group can shut down that particular air handler on the project after they approve it, or the contractor can do the shutdown. And this is a great tool that a lot of people are traditionally doing via emails. But this way it's logged in the system. I can report on it. I've got my audit trail all here for the project team. Now, in addition to do all the document controls, we also tie it in with the risk management. As a project manager, I want to track risk on my project, and I want to do it with an easy tool. So what we've got here is this orange risk sticky for you. What this tool does is it allows me to track the risk items on my project, where I can forecast out dollars and days for that particular risk item. And then what I can do is I can link my supporting documents and communication to it. So I can link RFIs and submittals here to my risk items on the project. And if I drill into risk item number 102, I can see here's my notes where I've updated my forecast in terms of days, dollars, and probability. So I can continue to revise it as I learn more about this risk. And then I can see all my documents and information linked to it. So I've got an ASI, a memo, an RFI, and a schedule activity all tied back to this risk. So I can link in all my supporting documents and communications. So in one place I know what my current forecast is for the risk. I can see my notes on how it's evolved, and I can see all my supporting documents and communication. Then I can take this risk item and I can roll it up into a risk register. So I can look at all the risk items for this particular project. What is my current forecast? $1.23 million worth of risk on this project. And I can take this value and I can put into reports with my contingency budget, so I can say, hey, do I have enough contingency to cover all my open risk items plus any change orders that I've approved to date? So I get some visibility into oncoming costs or upcoming costs on this project. Now I can take a look at the risk here at the project level, or I can go ahead and look at my water program. Keep in mind, EADOC manages all the data of the projects, but then we allow you guys to roll it up into programs, roll it up into portfolios as well. So this way, if I'm managing an entire CIP portfolio, I can look at my risk across that entire portfolio. So $2.6 million for this particular portfolio. Whereas the project managers are just focused on the individual project at hand. Or the program managers can do it at the program level. And then I can always drill down into these reports. And all these reports are configurable. Each user can customize the columns and the layouts of the reports and how they want to see them in the system. Now with my risk items, there's typically going to be one of two outcomes. Either I'm going to mitigate that risk and close it out and resolve that potential risk on the project, or it's going to become a cost impact. Typically that cost impact's in the form of a change order, and I want to continue that relationship. So I want to take my risk item and I want to tie it to that cost, because I want to track my forecast, what was I forecasting for the risk and the cost impact, and then what did it end up actually costing me on my project? How am I doing with my risk management? How am I doing with the risk tracking on the project in comparison to actuals? And so I can link those two together. Now keep in mind this risk item is internal. Nobody outside my firm sees this. This is an internal tool for me as the PMCM. I can link it to the CPR, and then I can send my cost proposal request to my contractor. They won't see the risk item. They're just going to see the CPR with the scope and the requirements here on it. And then my contractor can respond back with their cost proposal. There's no need for me to re-enter this information. They can do it directly into EADOC when they submit it to me as their proposal. So me and my colleagues and my client, we can do our reviews. We can do electronic signatures here on the cost proposal. And then once it's approved, we can roll it up into our change order. And our change order can encompass multiple cost proposals or a single one, depending on our process here in the system. And the change orders, we can route these around for review and approval. We can have multi-user approval processes. We can do electronic signatures, or we can print these out for wet signatures. Once that change order is approved, then it's going to update my payment application. The key thing here for me as a PMCM is I'm doing reviews and approvals. I put together that scope request on the change request. The contractor sends me a cost proposal, review and approve it with my client, create the change order, review and approve it, and then my contractor submits their payment applications for review and approval. I'm always capturing that data at the source. I don't want to have to rekey anything on this project. As a PMCM, once I set up my projects and my budgets and funding, I want to do reviews and approvals. And I can see that here with the system. This way, all my financial reports and those dashboards, these are all real time. So I can see exactly how all my projects are performing. I can see, for example, even the pending payment applications. So as soon as the contractor submits an invoice, it shows up in this column. I didn't have to hit a single key. And it's going to calculate my retention and do all the math for me. All the software is going to do is the number crunching, the tracking, the history, all that tedious, laborious office admin tasks is going to be done by the software here for you. And I can even drill down into my project and see all the different contracts. I can see, okay, where is that pay estimate that's pending, approved, the retention pending, all the different cost columns here. And you can see they're all configurable. I can pick and choose what columns of data I want to see on my particular reports. Within our financial controls, we're also allowing you guys to track the funding sources. So you can set up the different pots of money that you're using to pay for a medical center or a treatment plant, whatever types of projects you're managing. I can set up my budget codes to track my expenses. And you can group the codes together so I can have subcodes and hierarchies within my budget codes. And then my contracts. And my contracts are where I'm actually going to take the money and I can split contracts across multiple funding and budget sources. So this way when those pay applications and change orders get processed, it's automatically going to know what the breakdown is. I can do a percentage breakdown here or dollar breakdown. Or I can even do it at the schedule of value level here on my SOV. I can assign each schedule of values to a particular fund and budget on this particular project. So each line item can have its own funding and budget. Just depends on the granularity that I may need. With some client projects I may need this granularity. Other ones I may just leave it at the contract level. And then also with my change requests here with those scopes of work, I can assign these to their own funding and budget as well. So I can put these against a separate funding source, a separate budget category, depending on how I'm tracking my expenditures. And then all this information will roll up into my financial summary reports. I can do a change request report. I can look at all the CCRs across all my projects, or I can do some filter criteria. So you see there's a lot of reporting capability here for you guys. Now with EADOC, we've also built some unique reports here. When I was showing you earlier that change request and the change order, one of the unique tools that we've got here is the ability to take those changes and report on the relationships and the information links. So I was showing you earlier how my change order tied to my cost proposal request to my risk item, and my risk items to the RFIs. We can actually draw that out on a network diagram for you guys. So I can see all the information that ties back into my CPR here in the system and then to the change order. And this is a very powerful tool. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey Eric, how did we end up with this change order on the project? I've got a nice diagram to show them and say, okay, here's the risk that I was tracking this issue as. Here's the RFI that came in from the contractor. Here's the drawing that was tied to it. And I can actually drill down into each one of these particular items here in the system. So I can take a look at the details of that RFI and explain to my boss or my client and say, hey, here's how this change occurred on the project. Likewise, if I get into a claim situation, if the contractor comes back after me at the end of the project and says, hey, I didn't get enough money for this change order, it really should have been X dollars, I can bring this to my legal counsel and I can say, okay, here's all the documentation and communication that occurred. That's all related back to this particular change or claim on the job. This is a very powerful tool in bringing my legal counsel up to speed very quickly so they can work with me on this to evaluate, is this a legitimate claim or is this one that we should fight? The less time the legal counsel has to spend coming up to speed, the higher the quality information I present to them, the faster they can make a decision, the less money it's going to cost me and my client. Other reporting tools here in the system, standard RFI logs, submittal logs are all in here for you guys. So you can run any of the default ones. I can take a look at a pending submittal log here in the system. Now keep in mind all this reporting capability is available for the entire team, but it's only going to show their own data. So for example, when a designer runs the submittal log, they're only going to see submittals they have access to. So if this submittal 10200C.1 certified test data, if I haven't sent this to my designer, it won't show up in their submittal log. For the documents that I do see in my report, I can drill down into. It takes me directly to it. So I can create reports for my weekly meetings. I can create them for review sessions. And then I can bring them up on my screen. I can do it on a projector, on a flat panel monitor in my trailer. Now all these reports can be configured. So you guys can come in and build your own custom reports. So if we go back to maybe a weekly meeting report, maybe I want submittals, RFIs, memos, and we'll say change orders that are all currently under review. All I got to do is go ahead and add those items to my report. So I'm copying a submittal report. I'm going to go ahead and add RFIs to it. I'm going to add my memos. And then I'm also going to go ahead and add my change orders to it. So I've added those 4 different items to my list here in my report. Pick and choose my filter criteria. So right now I'm looking at all the pending ones that are going through the review process. I can filter by who created it, who's pending on it, locations, references, days outstanding. Then I can pick and choose my columns. What types of information do I want to see in my report? How do I want my report laid out? I can easily move those columns around. I can change the column labels. And if I want, I can even customize the PDF column lists on the printouts. Save my report, and then run it here in the system. And so in a single report, I can see all my pending submittals, pending RFIs, pending memos, and pending change orders. And just like that default report that I showed you, it's interactive. I can click on the change order and go directly to it. The objective is to put all the information here at your fingertips so you can quickly answer any questions that people have at those weekly meetings, resolve any issues quickly. And I can always print or export this information to PDF or an Excel spreadsheet as well. We've also got statistics here for you guys, so you can keep tabs on how fast information is moving on my project. Make sure my RFIs and submittals are getting turned around on time. Make sure my min and max turnarounds are good, my average turnarounds are good compared to my contract requirements. To ensure I've got good statistics, we've got alerts. So this way you can set up the alerts to be very proactive here on the system. So with the alerts, I can set them up to say every time a particular document comes from my contractor, every time they send me an RFI, if it gets within 2 days of a due date, tell me about it. And I can base it on the due date or the date they submitted it to me, 5 days after I received it. So I can set up these alerts to start telling me and say, hey, this document's getting close to a due date, you should take an action on it. Maybe it's been sitting on the designer's desk, maybe it's on my client's. Irregardless, the system's going to start notifying me and say, hey, this information is getting close to your due date. And it can notify me via email or on my dashboard. If we take a step back here up into the document section, this is where we've got the drawings for you guys. During the design phase of the project, the designers can upload packages of drawings that can be routed around for review and comment. We've got the specifications for you guys here on the system, so you can upload your specs, and you can drag and drop them. There's a drag and drop utility here for you. We've got the schedule files on this particular tab, so you can post Excel, P6, MS Project, and I'll show you our schedule viewer here in a few minutes. We've got our picture tab here with a viewer built in, so I can browse through the photos, and I can click on the photos here. And if it's a larger picture, it'll blow it up there for me. This is a real small one. I can also filter the pictures. Say, for example, I want to look at all my inspectors' pictures from their daily reports. Now keep in mind these photos came in with their daily reports. So when the inspector did their daily report, they attached the picture directly with it, and then we copied it to the picture tab so I can browse through it. This is going to allow me to navigate into my inspector's daily report. So I can actually follow the links back to the daily report where that picture was taken. And the inspector, all they had to do was take pictures with their daily report. So I can see here's the photos, here's the one I clicked on, and then I can go from my photo viewer, where I browse through all their photos and one caught my attention, into their detailed daily report. And then there's a link back here to the picture viewer. And you'll see within the document section here we can track some miscellaneous tabs, environmental documents, set up some custom forms and tabs for bid docs and bid forms and warranties. We've got a lot of flexibility for you guys. Every project uses the core EADOC functionality, and then there's always something unique, and so we can set up custom tabs and forms to manage that unique requirement. If we jump back up here to the start section where the daily reports are, this is where I can capture my inspector daily reports. And this is a great place for tablets because it's walking the job site, filling out the report. The weather can automatically be imported from a local weather station. And then they can take pictures with their daily reports and fill out their crafts and equipment and so value items here in the system. And you can do approval processes on these as well. You can have multiple inspectors. You can capture contractor daily reports. There's a lot of flexibility in terms of how we set it up and what information you guys want to capture on a daily report. We've also got memos for all your general communication. So the contractor can write letters to you guys. I can write letters to my contractor, designers, consultants. All my communications running through EADOC. And this is a lot more powerful and a lot more cost efficient than email. The reason being is every piece of communication is automatically tied to the project that we're working on. I've got the detail audit trail. I don't have to log it in an Excel spreadsheet because email will not do this audit trail for you. And I can link it to my risk items. So all my information, all my communication, all my documentation is in one place. So when my project closes out takes me an hour versus potentially hundreds of hours of going through email systems, FTP sites, paper files. I want everything in EADOC because EADOC is going to deliver an archive to me at the end of the project with everything in it. Every record that I've managed gets shipped to me in an archive. We've got meetings here in the system. So I can track the agendas for those meetings, track the topics, send out my invitation. If people have Outlook, it'll show up in their Outlook calendar. I can track my open action items from last week's meetings. They'll show up on my current agenda. And then when my meeting's complete, I can go ahead and type up my meeting minutes with who attended, what we talked about, those new action items I can assign to users and organizations on my project. Project calendars. Every user is going to have their own calendar based on what's due on them, what's overdue, what they have access to in the system. And then I can assign standard tasks and action items. Then I can even set up webcams to display here in the system as well. So this way if you have a webcam, you can display it here. So we're capturing a lot of information about your projects, but we're doing it incredibly efficiently. We're doing it electronically. We're capturing it at the source. We're putting it into one application for you guys. We're giving you guys the ability to report on it, set alerts and notifications, and let the software do a lot of those traditional administrative responsibilities for you guys. We're also allowing you guys to bring in the schedule data from either P6 or MS Project. So this way I can load up my Gantt chart here. So I showed you earlier on my risk item that risk item was linked to a schedule activity. So you can import those schedule activities, and then I can browse through them all here in my Gantt chart as well. So I can take a look at my schedule. If I want, I can show the critical path, and I can zoom in, zoom out on the schedule here, and navigate around it. I can roll up my activities, display my critical path items there here, zoom in on the schedule. Now, there's a lot of different ways to display it here. The scheduling will still always be done in MS Project or P6, but at least in EADOC, I can share the schedule with the project team, and users can view it and take a look at it here in a Gantt chart form. Now when it comes to administration, if I jump back here to my workflow here, one of the things that we've developed here at EADOC that's unique in the industry is what we call the distributed administration. So for me as a PMCM, I can add my designer, give them their permissions, and then they can take those permissions and assign them to their own staff and bring on their subs. Same thing with the contractor. I can give them their permissions, they can pass on those to the subs. So I don't have to administer potentially hundreds of users on a project. I'm going to give each of my project participants the ability to administer their own organization and bring on their subs. And the EADOC application's workflow engine understands it, says, hey, when my contractor starts adding subs, everything these subs do has to go back to that prime contractor first. And so the core workflow is automatically established. I can set up an EADOC project this afternoon, and we can start moving RFIs and submittals across a team, no problem, without having to bring up a Visio chart. I can still modify this workflow. I can set up groups and distributions and routing rules across it, but out of the box, I can automatically build a core workflow for you guys based off contractual requirements. And the administration is done down here in the Profile tab. This is where I can come into the EADOC application. I can create my new project. I could copy a previous project if I wanted to, copy over users and specific data from that project. I can add my organizations and set up the permissions here on the project, give them access to it. And you can set up permission templates. You know, if I'm doing a large program, I'm going to set up templates for my contractors and my designers and standardize their permissions. Same thing with my users. I can set up permission templates here as well. You can see if you're using digital signatures, you can bring those digital signatures in. Each user will have to upload their own to the system along with their contact information. Users can manage their own email notifications. And for me as the project manager, I'm going to set up those reference locations. So I'm going to set up, if I'm doing a heavy civil project, it's going to be location based. And you'll see here I can even tie it into a GIS system. And I can link it to other data points. I could link it to an Esri map, or I could link it to a 3D drawing or a BIM model as well. I'm going to set up my assets. You know, what I want to do is I want to import my electrical and mechanical equipment schedules into the system. So with EADOC, we can import those from an Excel spreadsheet for you. So we've got all that asset data, so I can track all my documents and communication against those assets. This way when the project's complete, I can turn this over to the client and they can give it to their operations group. So they can turn over the warranties and the O&M manuals and all that asset data that we've collected during design and construction. Equipment and craft, this is for the contractors to maintain their equipment. This is going to populate my inspectors drop-down menus and their T&M tag reports. And then the schedule activities. This is where the import comes, and we'll import from either P6 or MS Project into the EADOC application. Admin tab, this is where all the fields and forms and configuration are managed. EADOC supports you guys on an ongoing basis. Support is included with our subscriptions. And any changes you guys need made to forms, fields, labels, drop-down menus, just tell us what those changes and we'll take care of it for you. Typically response time is usually less than 2 hours. All of our help is built in for your project team, so people can bring up user guides, administrator guides. We've also got videos spread throughout the application. On the bottom right, you'll see about half a dozen of these tutorial videos, as well as tab-specific help. So if I want to be reading about how to create a new submittal while I'm working in the Submittal tab, I can do that. We've also got the EADOC updates are in here, some new features and functionality that roll out every quarter. We'll let you guys know what those are. And then our support tab. So we've built support into our application. This way it's available for everybody on your project. This is an industry first. Not only is it available for everybody, but it's easy to complete. Tell us what the issue is. Because you're already logged into EADOC, we know who you are, we know what account you're on, what project you're on. Half of most support requests forms are filled out just telling us who you are, or for other companies. With EADOC, that's not the case. You can say, hey, I need help with, say, a pay application. And all you got to do is fill out the form here and say, please call me at 5 p.m. And give us your number and a time to call you. And our support team will call you back or ask you a question that says, hey, I need help with this. I'm having an issue. My retainage isn't calculating correctly, or I'm missing a change order, whatever it may be. And our support team will help you out. And you can submit that directly to us at EADOC. This can be a subcontractor, supplier, consultant, designer. Anybody that needs assistance using EADOC can contact us directly. The other thing we do with the EADOC application too is we set up accounts for each client. So what we do is we'll set up an account for you guys. We'll put your logos, your branding on it here in the system. Show you another example. This is one of our engineering ones. For owners, same thing. This is Lee County, Florida. So we can set up the sites and change the colors and the logos and the branding for you guys. This way your project participants are the only ones that are aware of your URL. If you go to the EADOC website, you will not find a client login. Client logins are for clients only. We go through a lot of measures, much more robust than our competitors in terms of protecting client data, protecting access to that data, encrypting all that data for you guys, and maintaining a really robust infrastructure for you. So if you are curious who's using EADOC, feel free to take a look at our website. We've got two groups of clients. We've got the facility owners, and then we have the PM/CM firms on it. And there's descriptions about the clients and how they're using EADOC. So you'll see cities and counties and hospitals that are using EADOC across the country, and water agencies. Also, you'll see the consultants that we've got. So the owners that hire the PM/CM firms, projects that they're currently working on with the EADOC application as well. So you can learn more about us. We've also got tutorial videos on our website you can take a look at, case studies. There's a whole host of great information, and I don't have to fill out a registration page. If you want us to contact you, go ahead and do so. Otherwise, just take a look at our website for some more details. Nothing's hidden on the site. So with that, I'm going to bring up a couple last slides here on my presentation just to wrap it up, and then we're going to go into Q&A. So in summary here for you guys, EADOC is going to deliver cost savings. Right? The only reason why you want to buy a project management tool is to reduce costs on your projects. And the way we're going to do that is eliminating the tedious and costly paper process. We want to take you guys electronic, get rid of all that paper and go digital. Eliminating the error-prone and costly transmittal on the manual logging process from your entire project team. It's amazing how many people have bought large, expensive enterprise PM tools and they're still manually entering data. And they're still emailing information back and forth. So if you look at the cost savings of that, people can say, oh, we're electronic, but we're emailing it. You have a lot of labor going into that. So we can still look at saving anywhere from $20,000 to $500,000 depending on the size of the projects in your CIP program, and cost savings there. Project closeout costs. A lot of people have multiple systems. They'll be using Dropbox, FTP site, email, Excel spreadsheets. To bring all that data together and to provide a coordinated closeout record is very difficult. So with EADOC, because everything's in one place, we can ship that archive to you guys. So you'll have all the project information there ready to go. And then the claims prevention and mitigation. If you look at the cost of a claim, just evaluating a claim, if you have to get legal counsel involved and a few experts in just to research a claim filed by a contractor, your bill can easily hit $100,000. So with EADOC, we're trying to mitigate that and allow you guys to manage the risk to prevent that claim from even getting filed. The contractors know if you as a client or a project manager are using EADOC, you've got a very detailed record. Everybody who's read, sent, and responded to that. They can't get away with any BS claims with the EADOC application. because they know the audit trail's there, they know the alerts and notifications and reporting is all there. So it really has to be a legitimate claim that they're going to file. So we're eliminating all those bogus ones and the cost of you having to defend against bogus claims. If it is a real claim too, you're going to have the tools to evaluate and say, hey, this is a legit claim. Let's resolve this early. Let's not go to court and spend all that extra money. Risk reduction. Nothing gets lost. Everything's stored in one trusted location for you guys. We host everything for you guys in our data centers. It's a trusted, secure system. Nothing can ever be deleted from EADOC. We provide the document control and cost control with the schedule integration in one solution for you. You can easily track the project risks with their associated documents and communications. So as a project manager, that's a very powerful tool because I want to be focused on risk. Any issue that can have a potential cost or schedule impact, I want to track it so I can mitigate it. If I'm not tracking it, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to mitigate it if I don't know what it is. And easy to use. We're connecting a large audience. We want to bring the entire team on board, make it easy to get people off and running with a couple hours of training. We've automated the workflow process to ensure the entire team follows their contractual requirements. And some of the key advantages, a collaborative subscription model. So as I mentioned earlier, unlimited users. We've got unlimited data storage. Our subscription model wants you guys to use the system. Put all the pictures, the videos, the drawings, everything you guys are generating into our application. There's no additional cost for it. And we're going to support the entire team. Anybody on your team has a question, they can contact us directly here at EADOC. It's a flexible application, configurable forms, fields, and labels to meet you and your client's requirements. The workflows are automated, but then we can also configure those rules and set up different processes. And we give you an unprecedented level of control, all the way down to sticky notes, submittal comments, and risk items, ensuring that each project participant has access to their own information on the project. So with that, we'll go ahead and open it up to Q&A for you guys. Here's some contact information as well. So feel free to go ahead and the audience is unmuted, fire away questions, or if you want, you can use the chat log there on the left-hand side.
Eric, this is Scott RFIs in Columbus, Ohio, Nationwide Children's Hospital. I have a few questions if I can maybe lay them out for you here.
That'd be great.
Does the PMCM have access to all of the communications that are within the system? So if a sub-supplier is talking to his manufacturer, do you have access to that?
Not until they send it to me.
Okay, I got it. When you ran your search function, and you used the word pipe, I believe, there's going to be tens of thousands of references to pipes and specifications and submittals in drawings in hundreds of places. It's too much of an information. So how is one able to refine or filter that to get something that's perhaps pertinent to one's needs? Because to search for pipe, yeah, that's a great gross filter, but it's going to oceans of data that you cannot pick out the details in or that you need to pursue an issue perhaps.
Absolutely. So what you can do is you can narrow that criteria down. So for example, I can go into my report tool and I can say, okay, I want to search for pipe, but I only want to search ASIs, change orders, daily reports. I can identify specific documents.
Perfect. That's good. That was not clear in your quick example, which is fine. Is there any ability to add regulatory people, as in building departments, building inspectors, and so forth? And have you seen any success with integrating the regulatory environment into a project?
Absolutely. Probably one of the more successful projects we did was a healthcare project in California with the state regulatory agency, OSHPD, as they're known here in California. They were logging into the system, they were being notified of their inspections, and they were actually doing their inspections in the system. So the project was one contractor and one project team, but the project was being executed underneath 5 OSHPD permits. So what they had to do is they had to tie each piece of documentation to the specific permit. So when the inspector came on site to do an inspection against that particular permit, they could run a report that gave them all the approved submittals, any RFIs, any change orders related to that particular permit, and then they would link their inspections with that permit as well in the system.
Okay. How about integration with owners' accounting systems?
Yep. So a good example, typically is payment applications. You want to do your reviews and approvals in here and then send the payment here. Typically, the owner's IT department will not let us do a direct integration with the accounting system. Usually we'll have to deliver the data to an FTP site, a CSV file, XML. We drop it someplace, the IT department grabs it, and then feeds it to the accounting system. But there's definitely multiple ways we can accomplish it.
Okay. Who owns, and it's with quotes around, who, quote, owns, unquote, the data?
So everybody but us. So what we do with our clients is you and your project participants own the data. And we'll help you out with this as well on the contracts with your project participants. So the way data ownership works is, for example, my contractor creates a submittal. So they have ownership rights to the submittal. When they send that to me as a PMCM, they grant me ownership interest in that particular document. And then when I send it to designers, then they now have ownership rights in it as well. So as that information moves across the team, each project participant gets an access right to it.
Is there any sharing, so to speak, to outside entities outside this project team at any level?
Yeah, so you can email information outside the team.
That's not what I'm interested in. Here's what I'm sorry to cut you off. What I'm interested in is, when I send an email to my daughter, 5 people snoop at that on the way between me and her. Now, I realize we're exchanging all kinds of sensitive information here, and there's probably very high value that could be leveraged from that. Oh my goodness, this project's interested in a chiller. And so word goes out to 5 chiller manufacturers that are paying for that data, perhaps to you or to someone else, and say, all of a sudden I start getting solicitations for chillers. And it's like, where'd these all come from? I may not know that there's connections and creepware out there, but there certainly is a lot of it. And is that occurring within your system? I read some end user license or EUL type agreements, and I am astounded by how much is basically allowed within those, and I'm then forewarned.
Correct. So there's 2 things. Obviously, there's the end user license agreement that says, hey, here's your warning, please don't do it type of thing. The other thing about our system is it's going to log every action with that particular piece of information. So say, for example, you bring on, or your general contractor adds a subcontractor or supplier, and they go tell the world that says, hey, we're looking for chillers on this project.
Yeah.
That's going to be logged in the history. You're going to know exactly who sent that communication out and who they sent it to. So you may not be able to prevent it, but you will know exactly who did what when.
Okay.
So when
at least
somebody
through your
says,
system.
hey, look,
okay. Certainly the good old boy network still works.
Exactly.
How is risk, next question, how is risk cleared from the risk log?
It's closed out. So you have the risk register will show you all the open risk items.
Okay.
So here's all my open risk items. And then once a risk item is no longer applied, I hit close. And so I will close out risk item number 2 here. And then it'll disappear from my risk register. I'm still going to have access to it. It's still going to be an item here on my closed risk item list. I can still go back into it. But the dollars are no longer affecting my contingencies and my risk forecast.
Right. Okay. Okay. Got it. Last comment is, or question is, on the schedule, you mentioned like MS Project or the other platform there. How is that imported? Is that a live link to the schedule that is kept on someone else's desktop, or is it need to be uploaded with some frequency? When you talked about moving things around and doing things, I was thinking, boy, I don't want people messing with the schedule. They're goodness sake, sometimes those schedules are quite long and complex.
Right. So you can't make any changes to the schedule inside EADOC. It is an import.
Okay.
So as you do your baseline updates, maybe you do a monthly update on your projects, you will do an import. An import button will pop up here, and we'll track all the different versions of that schedule. So as it gets modified each month, we'll track those changes and activities for you. But you will have to do an export from MS Project, for example, and then hit the import button, throw that MS Project file into EADOC, and then you're done.
And then it's more like a viewing port, right? Because it doesn't have you can't manipulate the baseline schedule. Okay.
Correct.
That concludes my questions. Thank you, and please leave room for others.
You're welcome. Anybody else on the call got any other questions?
Hi, Eric. It's Mario Maciel from TRC Solutions. How you doing?
Good. How about yourself, Mario?
Pretty good. Hey, what about a BIM model? Can that be accommodated as an attachment to a submittal or an RFI?
Yes. Yeah, as a file attachment, absolutely.
Okay. That was my only question. Thanks.
Yep. I'll give you a comment on the BIM models too. We want to import the data and the model itself, much like we do with the scheduler, so you can view the model and create relationships to the objects. The problem is the industry isn't doing that level of detail where they're actually defining all the assets and equipment and materials in the BIM models yet. But in the next couple of years, as they get closer to it, then we'll actually import the BIM model data into our system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, excellent, guys. If there's no more questions, there's the contact information up there for you guys. At the end of the webinar, there will be a quick survey that pops up for you. If you want to give us some feedback and comments, please do so. If you're interested in learning more about EADOC or using it on an upcoming project, our contact info is there. Feel free to reach out to us. And thank you guys for attending our webinar this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.